Introduction. The secret you were never meant to forget. What if everything you've ever been told about reality was just a fraction of the truth? What if the answers you've been chasing, in books, in beliefs, in voices outside of you, have always been waiting in the one place you've been taught to ignore? Inside yourself. This is not a story. It's not a theory. It's not even a teaching. It's a reminder, a call to something ancient that still lives beneath your thoughts. A pulse that's been beating since the first star was born. A vibration older than time that still echoes in your soul. You are not here to be small. You are not broken. You are not lost. You are power wrapped in skin. You are the breath of the universe, forgetting, then remembering itself. And the moment you remember, everything changes. You see, this world, this life, isn't something happening to you. It's something you are creating in every moment, with every word, every thought, every feeling. You're not a victim of your reality. You're the architect. This is what the ancients try to tell us. But their wisdom was hidden, burned, silenced, twisted into rituals and rules and religions. But it never disappeared. It was preserved in symbols, in chants, in sacred geometry, in vibration, passed in whispers by mystics, sages, and seekers, encoded in the silence between words. And now, it's calling you, not to believe, not to obey, but to remember, because what you've been seeking, you already are. This is not the beginning of a story. This is the end of forgetting. Welcome to the truth you were never meant to forget. Chapter 1, The Ancient Mystery. They called it the hidden path, not because it was locked behind stone doors or buried in forgotten deserts, but because it was hidden in plain sight, in stories, in sound, in breath, long before science, before empires, before even written language. There were those who knew the universe is not solid. It's not matter. It's movement. It's vibration. The mystics knew. The sages knew. The keepers of symbols, of breath, of sacred sound. They all knew. They called it the word, the name, the vibration that gave birth to stars and sound and soul. In Sumeria, it was a whispered chant. In Egypt, a symbol carved in silence. In India, it became Om, the sacred syllable of creation. And in ancient Hebrew, the very name of God was so sacred. It was never spoken aloud, but it was never about the letters. It was always about the frequency, the vibration, the state of being that aligns you not with gods above you, but with the divine inside you. And somehow, you already know this, because when you close your eyes, when you stop thinking and start listening, there's a part of you that remembers, not as information, as resonance. Your bones know, your breath knows, your silence knows. This is the ancient mystery. You are not separate from the divine. You are not waiting to be saved. You are not climbing toward the light. You are the light. But somewhere along the line, the world forgot. We replaced symbols with systems. We buried spirit beneath survival. We traded remembrance for belief. The kind of belief that requires obedience, not awakening. The ancient paths were never about worship. They were about transformation. The Sufis didn't kneel to gods in the sky. They danced, turning in perfect spirals to become the vibration itself. The alchemists weren't chasing gold. They were melting the ego, purifying the self, turning the lead of the unconscious mind into the gold of illumined awareness. Even the silent monks, with their chants and circles, were tuning themselves to the harmonic structure of the universe, because they knew what quantum physics is only just beginning to rediscover. Everything is energy. Everything is frequency. Everything is vibration. And that includes you. Your thoughts are vibration. Your words are vibration. Your emotions, energy and motion, are vibration. And what you vibrate, you create, not metaphorically, literally. You're not observing reality. You are generating it. You are projecting it outward. And the universe, like a perfect mirror, returns it to you, thought for thought, belief for belief, intention for intention. This is not magic. It's law, ancient law, universal law. And those who knew this law, they hid it well. They didn't write books for mass approval. They carved it into temples. They embedded it in music. They passed it through sacred geometry, through metaphor, through sacred breath. Why? Because those who control the story of reality control the power of creation. And when the individual realizes that they themselves are the story, are the sound, are the vibration, they become dangerous. Dangerous to systems, to institutions, to dogmas, to the illusion of separation. And that's why this wisdom was labeled forbidden. Not because it was false, but because it was true. Because a soul who remembers its nature is no longer manageable. It no longer fears. It no longer submits. It no longer needs permission to shine. It simply becomes what it was always meant to be, a creator. And that is the ancient mystery, the sacred secret whispered across cultures, across ages, across silence. You are not here to worship the divine. You are here to be it. The vibration lives in you. The breath is yours. And the moment you remember it, you begin to shift reality from within. And so, with that truth glowing quietly in the center of your being, we now begin to step into the next truth, the truth of the creative word, and the power hidden in every sound you've ever spoken. Chapter 2, the creative word. Everything begins with a word, not just in myth, not just in metaphor, but in vibration. In the beginning was the word, a phrase echoed across scriptures, civilizations, and centuries. But most never pause to ask, what is the word? It's not just a sound. It's not a sentence. It's not even a language. It's frequency, a vibration so perfectly aligned with source that it did not describe reality. It became it. When you speak, you're not just making noise. You're weaving sound into structure. You're assigning vibration to meaning, and meaning to matter. Every word you've ever spoken has left a pattern in the field of creation. This is why the ancients treated language as sacred, not because they feared blasphemy, but because they understood responsibility. In Egypt, they called it Heka, the spiritual force behind speech. In Kabbalah, every Hebrew letter is a vibrational building block of existence. In Sanskrit, mantras aren't just sounds, they're living energies. And in the mystery schools of old, only the initiated were taught the true names of things. Because to name something is to activate it, and to activate something with consciousness is to create with intention. This is the real magic. You don't need spells. You're already casting them every day. With every word you speak about yourself, about others, about the world. Think about it. How many times have you said, I can't, I'm not good enough. This always happens to me. Life is hard. I'm stuck. And the universe, obediently neutral, reflects that back to you, not as punishment, but as an echo. Because the word is law. Your speech is a signal. Your thoughts are frequencies. Your emotions are amplifiers. And your beliefs are the codes that tell reality how to respond. You are speaking your world into existence. So the question is, what reality are your words building? When you say, I am, what follows it becomes a blueprint. I am tired. I am lost. I am failing. I am nothing. Or, I am learning. I am light. I am powerful. I am the vibration of love itself. These aren't just affirmations. They are declarations. They are commands to the field. Because everything is listening. Everything is alive. And everything responds to frequency. The ancients didn't chant for fun. They didn't whisper divine names out of habit. They understood that sacred sound is a tool of transformation. But over time, we forgot. We diluted the power of language into noise, sarcasm, complaint, and cliché. We began speaking carelessly, forgetting that every word carries weight. And yet, the code still works. The system still responds. The field is still listening. Because vibration never stops. So the invitation now is to return to sacred speech. To speak, not from fear or habit, but from awareness. Because the truth is, your voice is not just yours. It is a channel, a current of creation, a portal through which energy becomes matter. Speak life. Speak light. Speak not only what you see, but what you wish to seed. Because words are seeds. And every time you speak, you plant your future. Let your language become a ritual. Let your thoughts be prayers. Let your silence be music. Let your vibration be medicine. You don't need to shout to be heard. You only need to speak with presence, because presence is power. So the next time you say I am, pause, feel it. Let it rise not from your mind, but from your soul, and watch as the universe responds. You are the word. You are the sound. You are the vibration that shapes reality from the inside out. And now that you know this, you're ready for the next layer of the mystery. Not just how reality responds to vibration, but what stands in the way of that vibration from flowing fully through you. The illusion, the mask, the ego. Let's walk into the shadows and see what's been keeping the light from shining. Chapter 3, The Illusion of Ego. If you're light, if you're vibration, if you are the divine remembering itself, then why does it feel so hard to live as that? Why do we suffer, compare, doubt, and forget? Because between who you are and who you think you are, there's a veil. And that veil is the ego, not the villain, not the enemy, but the mask, the part of you built to survive, not to awaken. The ego is the voice that speaks in fear, in limitation, in stories built from past pain. It is the one that says, you are not enough. You don't belong. You must earn love. You must control everything, or you will lose yourself. But here's the truth. You were never meant to be controlled. You were never meant to shrink, fit in, or compete. The ego does not know who you are. It only remembers who you had to become, to feel safe. And that version of you was never real. It was survival. It was strategy. It was a reaction to a world that forgot how to see the soul. So you built an image. You shape yourself to be accepted, to be praised, to be wanted. You buried your rawness, your strangeness, your wildness. But the soul never forgets. Even beneath layers of pretense and perfectionism, your true essence keeps pulsing, quietly, patiently, waiting for you to come home. And that's why the ego resists awakening. Because when the light of truth returns, it burns away the mask, it melts the illusion, and the ego fears being dissolved. But here's the grace. The ego doesn't need to be destroyed, only understood, only seen, because what the ego truly wants is peace. It just forgot how to find it. So instead of fighting the ego, you embrace it, you witness it, you tell it, thank you for trying to protect me, but I don't need protection anymore. I need freedom. This is the first stage of inner alchemy, dissolution, to dissolve the false identities, to unlearn the beliefs that dim your light, to burn the old stories at the altar of remembrance. The ancient mystics called this nigredo, the black phase, the death before rebirth, the moment where everything you thought you were begins to fall apart. And it hurts, because you're not just letting go of pain, you're letting go of the person you became to survive it. But what comes next is clarity, not because you've figured life out, but because you've cleared the noise. And in that silence, something stirs. Your truth, your real self, the one that was never lost, only buried. And that is when you begin to remember. You're not your thoughts. You're not your fears. You're not your name, your status, your story. You're the one who observes all of that. You are the stillness behind the movement, the awareness behind the mask, the light behind the shadow. And once you see this, everything begins to shift. You don't have to chase love. You realize you are it. You don't have to prove your worth. You remember you've always had it. And the words that once hurt you, the comparisons that once broke you, the fears that once paralyzed you, they dissolve in the truth of who you really are. You stop reacting. You start creating. Because now, you're not creating from fear. You're creating from presence. And this is the key. Presence is power, not controlling, not forcing, but being so fully here that your vibration becomes the clearest note in the room. That's what the ego can never give you, but what the soul always knew. And so, as the false self begins to fall away, you begin to rise, lighter, clearer, closer to your true frequency. You've stepped into the alchemical fire, and something ancient is awakening through you. And from this space, you're now ready for the second stage, where the soul is no longer in hiding, and the light begins to pour in. The ego will whisper, you're not ready, but your soul will say, you were born ready, now burn. Let's walk now into the phase of purification, where shadow becomes light, and the vibration you were born to embody starts to return. Chapter 4, The Great Work. Once the illusion falls, the light begins to rise. Not all at once, not with fireworks, but gently, like dawn breaking into shadow, like memory returning after a long sleep. This is the second stage of the alchemical journey, purification, or as the ancients called it, albedo, the whitening, the cleansing of the soul. Because after we dissolve the false, we must learn how to live as what's real. This is the beginning of the great work. Not work that is done with your hands, but with your heart, with your breath, with your presence. The great work is not about changing the world. It's about clearing the fog within you, so that the world you perceive and project becomes clear. Here, the soul becomes the compass. The inner voice, the one that doesn't shout, but whispers, becomes your guide. And what it whispers is truth. But to hear it clearly, you must first quiet everything that isn't it. The anger, the noise, the distractions, the comparisons, the constant seeking. This is not the stage of adding more. This is the stage of less. Letting go, cleaning house, releasing thought patterns that no longer serve you, sifting through old identities and asking, is this mine? Or was I taught to carry it? You begin to feel your own vibration again, not distorted by guilt or shame, but pure, soft, alive. And in this clarity, something powerful happens. Your intuition awakens, not the gut reaction of instinct, but the deep knowing of the soul. A compass made of light that always points to what's true. You begin to sense things, alignments, imbalances, truth beneath words, energy behind actions. You stop asking for proof. You start listening for resonance. You're no longer guided by logic alone, but by vibration. You understand that not everything that makes sense is aligned, and not everything aligned will make sense to the mind. But the heart knows, the body knows, the vibration knows. This is where the sacred within you begins to shine again. It's not about becoming perfect. It's about becoming honest, aligned, transparent, letting your frequency speak louder than your words. And suddenly, you're not chasing anything. You're not clinging to anyone. You're not shrinking to fit or expanding to impress. You're simply being, radiating, trusting, because in purification, you remember that you were never broken, just buried. And each layer you release, each belief you let go of, reveals more of your light. And this light is not for decoration. It's for creation. It is the fire through which your reality is shaped. This is what the great work is, reclaiming your original frequency and learning to live from it. Unapologetically, you begin to say no without guilt. You begin to say yes with full presence. You begin to speak your truth, not to be right, but to be real. And you start to feel, not just believe, that the universe is not something you visit, but something you are constantly co-writing with every vibration you emit. Thought becomes vision, vision becomes form, form becomes experience. And it all begins here, in the still, sacred work of purification. The alchemist said, "Purify the black until it shines like the milk of the moon." This is not poetry, it's instruction. Purify your pain, purify your perception, purify your presence. And the world will begin to mirror your light back to you. With stunning accuracy, the people around you shift. The path ahead becomes clear, and even the challenges become invitations. You begin to recognize that life is not happening to you, but through you, not as a punishment, but as a perfect mirror of your current state of being. And now that you see clearly, you're ready for something greater, not just purity, but power. The third and final stage of the great work, union, the sacred marriage of shadow and light, of matter and spirit, of thought and embodiment, where you no longer reject any part of yourself, but integrate everything you've ever been into a single, unified frequency. And that's where we go next. The work is not done, but you are ready, and what waits for you is not more to fix, but more of you to embrace. Let us now step into the final stage of alchemy, the union, where the divine doesn't just whisper within you, it begins to live through you. Chapter 5, Union, Becoming the Alchemist. This is the moment of return, not to the past, but to the truth of who you've always been. You've walked through the fire. You've shed the masks. You've emptied yourself of the noise that never belonged to you. And now, you begin to rise, not as a seeker, not as a student, but as something far more sacred, an alchemist. Not the mythical kind who turns metal into gold, but the living kind who turns experience into wisdom, pain into power, vibration into form. This is the final stage of the great work, the sacred union. The ancients called it rabido, the reddening, the full embodiment of the divine within the human. It is here that all opposites are reconciled, light and shadow, mind and heart, masculine and feminine, heaven and earth, not as rivals, but as lovers, dancing, because true power isn't found in control. It's found in integration. The alchemist becomes whole, not by eliminating darkness, but by embracing it, not by escaping the body, but by becoming fully present in it. You begin to understand. Your humanness is not your flaw. It is your gateway. The body is not an obstacle. It is the vessel of light. The emotions are not problems. They are energy waiting to be felt and freed. Everything becomes sacred, even the silence, even the stillness, even the shadow, because nothing is outside of you anymore. You are not seeking the divine. You are embodying it. You become the bridge between the invisible and the visible, between intention and creation, between soul and world. And it shows, not in what you say, but in how you vibrate. People feel it. Rooms shift. Opportunities unfold. Not because you're forcing anything, but because you're now in resonance with truth. The ego has softened. The soul has emerged. The energy is aligned. And so, creation becomes natural, effortless, precise. You speak, and life listens. You imagine, and form follows. You feel, and reality bends. Not because you are above it, but because you are finally one with it. This is the miracle. You're not mastering life. You're merging with it. You don't need to manifest to prove your power. You manifest because it's your nature. This is what it means to become the alchemist. To hold all of yourself, the light, the dark, the divine, the messy, and say, this is me, whole, sacred, free. You don't seek permission. You don't perform for approval. You don't bend to systems that forgot the soul. You walk in your truth. You speak with your frequency. You create from the stillness of knowing. Because now, you remember, you're not a character in this world. You are the vibration that shapes it. And the alchemist knows. Reality is not something to react to. It is something to relate to co-create with, to dance with. Each moment becomes the canvas. Each breath, the brush. Each word, the ink of the divine. You don't follow the old scripts anymore. You write your own. And in doing so, you give others permission to remember who they are too. Because vibration is contagious, and presence is revolutionary. So here you are, not just remembering the truth, but living it. And the beauty is, this is not the end of the journey. This is where it truly begins. Because the moment you realize who you are, you stop surviving, and you start creating on purpose, with purpose, as a conscious force of love, light, and infinite power. The Philosopher's Stone is not a thing. It's a state of being, and now you are it. Let us now enter a new terrain, where the soul remembers not only its power, but its language, the symbols, the sacred patterns, the ancient blueprints that speak not to the mind, but to the soul. It is time to remember how the universe really speaks. Let us step into sacred symbols and the geometry of creation. Chapter 6, Sacred Symbols and the Geometry of Creation. Some truths don't arrive in words. They come as images, as sensations, as patterns that whisper directly to the soul. Before language, before theology, before even thought, there were symbols, not drawings, not decorations, but living portals, gateways to consciousness. Every ancient culture knew this. The Egyptians etched them in temples. The Tibetans drew them in sand. The Celts wove them into stone. And across oceans and centuries, they all spoke the same visual language. Geometry. Because geometry is not just mathematics. It is the architecture of energy, the fingerprint of creation. Look closely, and you'll see it everywhere. In the spiral of a galaxy, in the swirl of a seashell, in the unfurling of a fern, in the curve of your own DNA. This is sacred geometry, the structure that reveals the unity behind all things. It's not symbolic of truth. It is truth made visible. The flower of life, composed of overlapping circles, is not just a pattern. It contains within it the blueprint of all existence. The seed of life, the egg of life, the fruit of life. All stages of expansion coded into form. The circle reminds us there is no beginning, no end. Only flow, only oneness. The spiral teaches us growth is not linear. We evolve by returning to the same place, but with deeper awareness. The triangle represents balance. Mind, body, spirit, past, present, future, heaven, earth, and the soul that bridges them. And the eye, not the one that sees outward, but the one that sees within, is not surveillance. It is awareness. It is the part of you that cannot be deceived. These aren't symbols to be understood. They are frequencies to be felt. Because when you gaze upon a sacred symbol with presence, something ancient in you begins to stir. A remembrance, a resonance, a return. You don't need to analyze the flower of life to be moved by it, because truth doesn't always need translation. It only needs permission. That's why symbols were feared by systems of control, because they bypass logic, they bypass belief, and they go straight to the soul. In a world that conditions us to think in straight lines, symbols remind us that life is a spiral, that we don't move forward by force, but by frequency. And when you begin to live symbolically, your reality shifts. You start to see signs in the mundane. You feel meaning in shapes. You realize nothing is random. Everything is coded. The architecture of the divine is not hidden. It's woven into everything. From the petals of a flower to the movement of planets, everything moves in intelligent rhythm, and this rhythm lives in you. Your breath follows geometry. Your heartbeat pulses in ratios. Your energy fields spin in spirals. You are not separate from the cosmic design. You're a living expression of it. And when you align with that truth, when you meditate on the forms, when you create with sacred structure, when you walk as if everything is symbol, you activate something, a layer of perception, a language of light, a deeper way of seeing. You don't need to speak it. You only need to feel it. Because sacred symbols are not just to be studied. They are to be lived. Let your actions become mandalas. Let your choices form sacred geometry. Let your presence be a pattern of peace. This is the return to coherence, where your inner design aligns with the design of creation itself. And that alignment is not only beautiful, it's powerful, because in that harmony, you remember, you are not just part of the pattern. You are the pattern aware of itself. And from that awareness, you create worlds. The symbols are not there to teach you. They are there to remind you of what you already know. So let's follow that thread now into the next mystery, the spoken and unspoken names that carry the pulse of creation itself. Let us now enter the chapter of sacred sound, where vibration becomes language, and language becomes life. Chapter 7, Sacred Sound and the Power of the Name. There's a sound that doesn't come from the throat. It doesn't need air, doesn't require language, and cannot be captured on any recording device. It's older than speech, more precise than science, more intimate than thought. It is the vibration beneath all creation, and it lives in you. Everything that exists has a sound, not one you can always hear with your ears, but one your being can feel. This is not metaphor. This is physics, quantum, spiritual, vibrational truth. You are not made of matter. You are made of motion, and motion at its core is sound. Your cells hum, your atoms vibrate, your energy field sings a song, unique to your frequency. And here is the ancient mystery rediscovered. What you sound, you become. That's why the old ones chanted. That's why the mystics whispered names into silence. That's why prophets, sages, and healers all spoke with reverence for the name. The name of the divine was never just a label. It was a doorway, a sonic key, a living frequency that could bend reality when spoken with consciousness. But not every name, not every sound, only the true ones, the ones that match the resonance of creation, the ones that don't just describe truth, but vibrate as truth. In ancient Egypt, names were considered so sacred that to know someone's true name was to hold power over their destiny. In Sufism, the name of God, Allah, when recited in remembrance, becomes dhikr, a spiritual rhythm, a return to resonance with Source. Not because the word is magic, but because the presence inside the sound opens something dormant within. In the Hebrew tradition, the tetragrammaton, YHVH, was never pronounced aloud, not out of fear, but out of respect for the infinite vibration it contained. And in Eastern mysticism, the syllable OM is not a word. It is the sound of the universe itself, a frequency that, when intoned with awareness, aligns body, mind, and spirit into harmonic union. But here is the most sacred truth of all. You too have a name like this, not the one you were given at birth, not the one the world calls you, but a vibrational identity, a sound that reflects your soul's blueprint, your true tone. And when you find it, when you remember it, you don't just speak it, you become it. You walk differently, you breathe differently, you create effortlessly, because now you're not performing, you're resonating, you're not chasing alignment, you are alignment. But how do you find this name? You don't. It finds you in silence, in ceremony, in surrender, in those moments when the mind is quiet and the heart is open. Sometimes it's a sound. Sometimes it's a feeling. Sometimes it's nothing that can be spoken. Just a frequency you start to remember and begin to live. And when that happens, your entire reality shifts. Why? Because the universe responds to resonance, not to wishes. It doesn't give you what you want. It gives you what you vibrate. And when your vibration becomes clear, congruent, alive, your voice becomes a tool of creation. Every word becomes a seed. Every sound becomes structure. Every breath becomes blessing. You begin to speak with intention, not just to be heard, but to activate. You say things like, I am, I choose, I create, I remember, not as affirmations, but as decrees, spoken not from ego, but from the core of being, because now you understand. Language is not just communication. It is code. Each syllable you utter releases energy into the field. Each sentence becomes a blueprint, and your voice, your tone, becomes the frequency on which your life is built. And so, the question becomes, are you speaking from memory or from remembrance? Are your words echoes of fear, habit, and reaction? Or are they expressions of presence, power, and choice? You don't need to chant ancient mantras to use sacred sound. You just need to become intentional. With every vibration you release, even your silence carries sound. Even your breath shapes the field. This is why the awakened being is often so quiet, not out of shyness, but because they've remembered that sound is sacred. They speak less, but when they do, the universe listens because it recognizes the tone of truth. And now, you know this too. You may not know your soul's true name yet, but you can begin today by cleaning your language, honoring your voice, paying attention to vibration. Speak light, speak presence, speak what aligns with the world you're ready to live in, because every word you speak is a spell you cast into the field of creation. The name is not a single sound. It is a state of being, and you are its echo. You don't need to find the sacred sound. You only need to remove the noise that's keeping you from hearing it. Now that you've remembered this, you're ready for something even more subtle. The energetic intelligence behind the sound. The place where reality responds not only to words, but to your frequency of being. Let us now enter the field of resonance, mirrors, and manifestation, and explore how vibration becomes form. Chapter 8. The Field of Resonance. Reality as a Mirror. The moment you begin to vibrate consciously, the world begins to reflect something entirely different. Not because the world has changed, but because you have. This is the law of resonance. the silent, universal principle that governs all creation. And it works like this. What you are, you attract. What you feel, you shape. What you believe, you live. Everything around you, every person, every pattern, every moment, is not a random event. It is a mirror, a perfect, compassionate, neutral reflection of your inner frequency. And this is where true power is born. Because once you understand this, you stop being a victim of your reality and begin to partner with it. You start asking different questions. Not, why is this happening to me? But what part of me is being reflected here? You stop blaming, you stop chasing, and you begin to listen, not just to words, but to vibrations, to the invisible conversations between your energy and the world around you. Because the field is always listening. It doesn't judge, it doesn't punish, it simply responds faithfully to your most consistent signal. And that signal isn't your goals. It isn't your vision board. It isn't even your words. It's your state of being. You may say, I want peace. But if your vibration is tension, worry, and control, the field will reflect that, not your intention. You may affirm, I am abundant. But if your core frequency is lack, fear, and self-doubt, the universe mirrors that back, not as punishment, but as an invitation, a chance to tune yourself differently. Because when you shift your signal, you shift the entire story. This is resonance. This is coherence. This is creation from alignment. So how do you do it? You start by becoming radically honest about your vibration, not what you pretend to be, not what you post, not what you want others to see, but what you feel, consistently, subtly, silently. Do you live in trust or tension, in openness or resistance, in presence or projection? Because the field doesn't respond to what you want. It responds to what you are, especially when no one is watching. This is why the spiritual path isn't about performance. It's about presence. It's about integrity, not morality, but vibrational integrity. When your thoughts, emotions, and actions are in harmony with your truth, your frequency becomes clear. And when your frequency is clear, your life becomes clear. The people in it shift. The circumstances shift. The opportunities arrive not because you chase them, but because you match them. They were already waiting. You just had to become receptive to their signal. And this is where manifestation becomes magnetic, not forced. You don't get things. You don't make them happen. You align. You receive. You become a vibrational match to what already exists in the field. And yes, everything already exists in the field. Every version of you, every possible reality, every timeline, every outcome, every opportunity. But the version you experience is the one that matches your dominant frequency. And frequency is not fixed. It's fluid. Like a radio, you can tune at will, not through force, but through awareness, through practice, through presence. So the next time life brings you discomfort, pause. Don't run. Don't fight. Ask instead, what is this moment reflecting back to me? What am I being invited to see, feel, shift, or heal? Because every trigger is not a curse. It's a mirror showing you where you've forgotten your alignment. And every breakthrough is not a gift from outside. It's a response to your own becoming. You're not here to fix reality. You are here to remember your frequency and live in harmony with it. The field will take care of the rest. And here's the beauty. When your inner world becomes coherent, your outer world becomes miraculous. Not because you become good, but because you become clear. And clarity is magnetic. People feel it. Life responds to it. And the field bends gently in your direction. Because you are finally dancing with its rhythm, instead of wrestling against it. This is the true alchemy. To live in such deep coherence that you don't chase the life you want. You become it. And when you become it, nothing can stop it from reaching you. Because there is no separation. There never was. Just resonance. Just reflection. Just vibration echoing in form. The universe doesn't test you. It mirrors you. And when you shift, everything does. Now that you've remembered this, you're ready for the final integration. Let us step now into the last veil, where all seeking ends, and the soul rests not in certainty, but in deep, Sacred Acceptance. Chapter 9. The Last Veil, the End of Seeking. There comes a moment on every path when the searching stops, not because you've found everything, but because you've realized there was never anything missing. That moment is now, not in some distant future, not after another course, another breakthrough, another ritual. Now, because here, in this stillness, you begin to see clearly. There is no veil left to lift. There is no mystery left to solve. There is no final key hidden behind the final door. There's only this presence. And in that presence, everything is revealed. You see that what you called the journey was always a spiral inward, that each shadow was your own reflection, that each teaching was a mirror, that each block was a doorway in disguise. You were never far. You were never lost. You only believed the story of separation until you didn't. This is the last veil, the belief that awakening is something to achieve. The truth? There is nothing to achieve. There is only something to remember, that you are what you've been seeking, that the light you prayed to was your own, that the divine presence was never up there, but right here, breathing as you, through you, within you. And so, the seeking ends, not because the path is over, but because the one walking it has merged with it. There is no more distance between seeker and sought. There is no more doing. There is only being, pure, silent, radiant. And in this space, you realize something sacred. Even the darkness was never the enemy. It was your teacher. It was your mirror. It was the part of you, waiting to be embraced, not erased. The light does not destroy the dark. It holds it. The awakened one does not transcend the human. They honor it. The sacred is not somewhere else. It is everything. Your joy, your grief, your stillness, your chaos, your exhale, your heartbeat, your messy, imperfect, beautiful unfolding. This is the divine in form. This is you. And so you laugh. A deep, cosmic laugh. Not because everything is perfect, but because you no longer need it to be. This is the cosmic joke. That what you searched for was never hidden. It was simply too close, too familiar, too intimate to recognize. Like a fish searching for water, like a flame asking where the fire lives. And now, you stop reaching, you stop pushing, you start receiving, and even more than that, you start allowing life to unfold, allowing truth to rise without forcing it, allowing yourself to be guided, not by fear or desire, but by deep, sacred trust. You no longer resist the flow. You ride it. You dance with it, because you finally see life is not a puzzle to be solved. It's a poem to be lived. Not everything needs to be understood. Not everything needs to be healed. Not everything needs to be fixed. Some things are meant to be felt, witnessed, loved. And from that space of surrender, you begin to truly create. Not from urgency, not from lack, but from wholeness. Your vibration is no longer about reaching. It's about radiating. You become a presence of peace, a frequency of coherence, a mirror that gently reminds others of their own light. No words are needed, because your very being is the teaching. You have become the book, the mantra, the temple, the prayer. You have returned to where it all began, to silence, to vibration, to presence, to self. Not the self the world gave you, but the one that was never born and will never die. The eternal one, the spark, the source. And in that realization, there is nothing left to add, only to live, fully, freely, here. If you have arrived this far, not with your mind, but with your whole being, then you're no longer the listener. You are the vibration. You are no longer following the path. You are the path itself, and the rest of your life is a canvas. Paint with your vibration. Speak with your silence. Create not for approval, but as devotion, because now you remember. The secret was never hidden. The power was never lost. The truth was never elsewhere. It was always in you, waiting, whispering, ready. Now go live it. Capitulo Extra 10. The Spiral of Time. Reincarnation, Cycles, and Soul Memory. Some truths don't arrive all at once. They spiral into us. They come slowly, again and again, in new forms, new moments, new lifetimes. Because time, as we've been taught, is not a straight line. It's a spiral, a sacred, living rhythm that pulls us not forward, but inward. Each experience, each lesson, isn't something to master and leave behind. It's something to embody more deeply. We don't live once. We don't awaken in a single flash. We spiral. We return, not because we failed, but because the soul is infinite and remembrance has layers. You may not remember your past lives with your mind, but your body remembers. Your vibration remembers. Every fear you can't explain. Every place that feels like home, though you've never been. Every person you meet and feel you've known forever. These are soul echoes, frequencies carried across time, like fingerprints of eternity. You don't need to believe in reincarnation to feel its truth, because you've already lived it in patterns, in dreams, in deja vu, in the way your heart breaks open for things you've never seen in this life. Time, then, becomes less a timeline and more of a resonant field. Every version of you, past, future, parallel, is alive now, in vibration, and what you heal now ripples across that entire field. When you choose love over fear, stillness over reaction, presence over escape, you don't just shift this moment, you shift all moments. This is the sacred spiral, not karma as punishment, but karma as pattern, vibration calling for harmony. And once you step out of the illusion of linearity, something profound opens inside you. You no longer rush. You no longer panic. You begin to trust, because you know you're not behind. You're not late. You're right on time. Every detour was a return. Every failure was a refinement. Every loss was a remembering. The spiral has brought you here. Again, because this time you're ready to hold the truth at a deeper octave. And this is the gift of remembering that every version of you is sacred. Every mistake was a teacher. Every cycle brought you closer to your center. So don't rush the spiral. Don't force your growth. Just breathe with it. Let each loop take you deeper, not into theory, but into being. You don't need to reach enlightenment. You only need to surrender to the spiral that's already guiding you home. And one day, not far from now, you'll feel it, that the one who's been climbing and the one waiting at the center were never separate. They are the same. And that moment is not the end of time, but the beginning of timelessness. Capitulo Extra 11, the living prayer, making every moment sacred. Most people think of prayer as something you say, a request, a ritual, a moment you reserve for silence, for temples, for need. But the awakened soul knows. Prayer is not something you do. It's something you become. It's the way you breathe, the way you walk, the way you speak to the barista, the way you respond when no one is watching. It is the vibration you carry into the most ordinary of moments, because nothing is ordinary. The dishes you wash, sacred. The child you comfort, sacred. The quiet moment in your car, when you breathe and choose peace over chaos. That is prayer. Prayer is presence. It is alignment. It is living in such a way that every action becomes a frequency of devotion. When your feet touch the earth, you are praying. When you share a truth gently, you are praying. When you feel your pain fully without turning away, you are praying. You don't need to bow. You don't need to kneel. You don't need to speak ancient languages. You only need to be here, fully, sincerely, open, because God, or Source, or the Infinite, is not waiting at the end of your perfection. It is in your presence, in your laughter, in your sorrow, in your mistakes, in your honesty. It's not the form of the prayer that matters. It's the frequency. A rushed mantra means nothing. A whispered thank you from the heart can alter timelines. So let your life become the temple. Let your body become the altar. Let your words become mantras. Let your actions become medicine. And when you forget, as all of us do, don't punish yourself. That moment of remembrance is also prayer. I forgot, but now I'm back. That is holy. You don't have to do more. You don't have to be more. You only need to remember. You are already enough. And when you live from that place, your entire existence becomes a living offering, not to be praised, but to be felt, to be shared, to be true. There is no distance between you and the sacred. There is only attention, There's only presence. There's only now. So live like it matters. Breathe like it's sacred. Love like it's eternal. Because it is. You are the living prayer. And the world is listening. Chapter 12, Alchemy of the Everyday. Creating through choice. You don't need a temple to touch the divine. You don't need a mantra or incense or special words. You don't even need silence. Because the truth is, your life is the altar, and your choices are the ritual. We're taught to look for the sacred in certain places, in ceremonies, in spiritual spaces, in ancient texts. But what if the greatest act of spiritual power is how you choose to show up in the most ordinary of moments? How you speak to someone who disagrees with you, how you respond when you're tired or triggered, how you breathe when no one is looking. This is where the real alchemy lives, not in grand gestures, but in the invisible, the space between action and reaction, between stimulus and choice. You're always choosing, and each choice is vibration in motion. Each decision aligns you with one frequency or another, not based on morality, but based on consciousness. Will you choose from fear, or from trust, from control, or from surrender, from reaction, or from presence? This is the alchemy of the everyday, where life is your laboratory, and your awareness is the flame. Every moment becomes an opportunity to transmute density into clarity, noise into stillness, habit into liberation. You don't need to escape life to evolve. You need to meet it more fully, to pour your soul into the mundane, until the mundane becomes miraculous. Washing the dishes becomes purification. Making your bed becomes order in the field. Speaking truth becomes liberation. Holding space for someone becomes healing. And choosing silence, when your ego wants to speak, becomes mastery, because the awakened being doesn't seek to impress. They seek to embody. And embodiment happens in the little things, in the pause before you respond, in the tone behind your words, in the energy you carry when you enter a room. You become the ritual. You become the frequency. You become the magic. This is what the mystics knew. They didn't separate the sacred from the simple. They wove the sacred into the simple. Their walking was prayer. Their eating was mindfulness. Their speech was spell work. Their silence was a transmission. Because they understood, creation doesn't just happen with lightning bolts. It happens with choices. Small, repeated, intentional choices that build a vibration stronger than any spell. And you right now have that same power. You are not waiting to become powerful. You're learning how to wield it with love. That means when you choose to forgive, you create peace. When you choose to be kind to yourself, you shift timelines. When you choose to listen, to pause, to breathe, you anchor light. This is not symbolic. It's energetic reality. Your field changes. Your frequency stabilizes. Your reality bends to meet you. Because life is always listening. And it responds not to what you say, but to who you are being in your smallest moments. So if you want to change your world, don't wait for a breakthrough. Don't wait for a sign. Just start choosing differently. Now, start by asking, what vibration am I choosing with this breath? What am I feeding with this thought? What am I creating with this word? Not to control, but to tune yourself. Because you are an instrument. And more aligned you are, the more your life becomes music, resonant, beautiful, unmistakably yours. And others will feel it, not because you're louder, but because you are clearer. And that clarity is pure gold, the kind of gold no one can steal. The kind of wealth that isn't in your bank, but in your energy. That's the true alchemy, turning everyday choices into conscious creation, and remembering that every moment is a spell, cast not with candles and chants, but with presence. You don't need a sacred space to meet God. You only need to meet this moment with your whole heart. Now let's go deeper, because there is one tool more sacred than any prayer, any symbol, any mantra, your body. And it's time you remember what it really is. Chapter 13, you are the technology, the body as portal. There is a temple you've lived in every day of your life. You didn't have to build it. You didn't have to earn it. You didn't even have to understand it. You simply had to be in it. Your body, the most advanced technology you will ever encounter, more intelligent than any machine, more sacred than any church, more complex, more intuitive, more divine than anything created outside of you. And yet, you've likely been taught to mistrust it, to tame it, to criticize it, to push it, punish it, hide it, silence it. But what if your body is not in the way? What if your body is the way? A living compass, a bridge between the seen and unseen, a vessel that doesn't just carry your soul, but speaks the language of it, because your body is always communicating. That tightness in your chest, a message, that flutter in your stomach, a signal, that sudden peace when you walk into a room, that is divine technology at work. We tend to think of intuition as a voice in the mind, but more often it's a feeling in the body, because your body has memory, not just of this life, but of every moment your soul has ever touched. It remembers pain, it remembers freedom, it remembers patterns the mind can't explain. This is why healing isn't just mental. It's somatic, it's energetic, it's vibrational. You don't just process trauma through thoughts. You transmute it through presence, through movement, through breath. And your breath is your first access point. Each inhale is a code. Each exhale, a release. Not just of carbon dioxide, but of emotion, tension, thought, illusion. The breath doesn't ask permission. It knows. You can lie to your mind. You can't lie to your breath. That's why conscious breathing, even for 1 minute, can change your entire frequency. You come home. You return to coherence. You realign without effort. And it's not just breath. Your senses are gateways too. Sight, sound, touch, taste, scent. They are not distractions from the divine. They are invitations into it. The feel of the sun on your skin, the smell of rain, the warmth of a hand in yours, the rhythm of your heartbeat syncing with music, the taste of food prepared with love. These are not earthly pleasures. These are sacred technologies, ways the soul experiences itself in form. The problem isn't that we feel too much. It's that we've stopped feeling at all. We rush, we numb, we override, and we call that being strong. But true strength is sensitivity. True power is presence. To be fully in your body, without needing to escape or perform. That is spiritual maturity. To notice the way your body contracts in dishonesty and relaxes in truth. To feel when a yes is real and when a no is necessary. This is mastery, and the more you trust your body, the more it opens. You begin to hear it whisper. You begin to feel energy move. You begin to sense when something is right. Not because you can explain it, but because every cell agrees. And when the body and soul move in union, you become unstoppable. You speak with authority, not from ego, but from embodiment. You create not just from intention, but from integration. This is not theory. It's resonance. And it's not about perfection. It's about presence. You don't need a perfect body. You need a present body. One that's listened to, respected, honored as sacred space. Because it is. It is the temple. It is the instrument. It is the antenna. And through it, you transmit God. That's not blasphemy. That's biology and spirit united. So begin now. Feel your breath. Feel your feet. Notice the energy in your palms. Place your awareness on your spine, your heart, your womb, your throat. These are not just parts. They are portals. And when you learn to listen, they guide you home over and over again. You don't need to escape the body to reach the divine. You only need to enter it fully, because the divine has always lived here as you. Now that you've returned to your temple, it's time to step forward again into the world. But this time, not to seek, not to fix, not to prove, but to serve, to create, and to live from the deepest alignment of your soul. Chapter 14, After Awakening, the Return to the World. There is a moment after the rising, when the light has returned, the silence has spoken, and the soul is at peace. But then something unexpected happens. Life continues. The dishes still need washing. Bills arrive. People project. Traffic builds. The child cries. The phone rings. And suddenly, you are faced with the most sacred question of all. Now that I have awakened, how do I live? Because awakening is not the end of the path. It's the beginning of a different one. one where your presence walks through the world, not as a seeker, but as a beacon, one where you return to the same life. But nothing is the same, because you're no longer the same. You're no longer pulled by the same fears. You're no longer driven by the same lack. You're no longer asleep in the dream. You've opened your eyes, and now your life becomes your message. This is the real work, not escaping to the mountaintop, but bringing the mountaintop into the marketplace, carrying your peace into chaos, holding your center in conflict, answering ignorance with clarity, and darkness with grounded light. Not because you are better, but because you remember, we are one. There is no separation. And so, what you bring to the moment ripples into everyone it touches. Your energy becomes a teaching, not with words, but with frequency. You walk into a room and it calms. Not because you say anything, but because your being says everything. This is embodiment. This is integration. This is the return. The awakened one doesn't float above life. They dive deeper into it, with eyes open, feet grounded, and heart soft. And yes, there will still be pain. Yes, the world will still be messy. But now you are not afraid of it. You don't run from discomfort. You hold it. You breathe with it. You meet it with the same presence you once reserved for prayer. Because now, everything is sacred. The laughter, the laundry, the tears, the bills, the yes, the no, the pause, the boundary, the choice to rest. Each is part of your ministry. Each is a thread in the fabric of your return. You are no longer seeking meaning. You are living it. You are no longer chasing your purpose. You are embodying it. And here's the mystery. You don't need to change the world. You only need to show up in it. With truth, with presence, with integrity, with love that asks for nothing. This is service, not as sacrifice, but as expression. You give, not to be noble, but because you are full. You create, not to be seen, but because you are inspired. You listen not to fix, but to truly understand. You act not to prove, but to flow. This is what the world needs. Not more leaders, not more experts, but more people who are deeply human and fully present. People who can stand in uncertainty without collapsing, who can hold joy without clinging, who can walk with power without dominating, who can love without possession. People like you, because now you remember, you are not here to rise above the world. You are here to heal it with your wholeness, to live fully, to create boldly, to rest deeply, to walk the earth not as someone separate from it, but as its reflection, as its voice, as its pulse, as its prayer in motion. And when you forget, because you will, you'll know how to return, because the path is no longer out there. It is under your feet, is inside your breath, is in every moment you choose to wake up again, and again, and again. After awakening, there is only life. But now you live it as art, as presence, as vibration, as love incarnate. And now, we reach what looks like the end. But in truth, this is only a beginning, not a new search, but of a new relationship with yourself, with your breath, with the sacred pattern unfolding through you. You've remembered something. Most people spend lifetimes forgetting that the divine is not a destination. It's your vibration. That truth is not outside you. It's your silence. That the work is not to become something else, but to be fully who you already are. You've walked through symbols, sounds, stories, stillness. You've seen yourself reflected in mirrors of light and shadow. You've reclaimed your voice. You've remembered your name. You've stood at the edge of forgetting and stepped into remembrance. So what now? You live, but differently, with more presence, more permission, more grace, more awareness of your power. You're not here to be perfect. You're here to be present. You're not here to escape life. You're here to embody the sacred inside it. You're not here to impress the world. You're here to express your frequency. And every time you do, you awaken someone else's light, without effort, without trying, just by being who you are. So go now, not to prove anything, but to live everything from a place of deep, sacred remembering. You don't need more answers. You are the answer. You are the vibration. You are the one you're waiting for. Now breathe and begin again. If this journey awakened something in you, if it touched a place you had forgotten, or helped you remember who you really are, share it. Let the vibration ripple. Let someone else feel it. And if you'd like to receive new reminders every day, new frequencies to realign your energy and nourish your soul, subscribe to the channel. We're here every day with something new to awaken, inspire, and ground you in what you already are: light, presence, power, peace. Thank you for remembering. We'll meet again in the space between the silence and the sound.